Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy with Chef Justice Putnam. Netrootsradio.com.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théères, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est long, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte.
Top elections official says Georgia is on track to finish its recount by tomorrow and that it will affirm Joe Biden's victory in the state. The announcement comes as a growing number of Democrats are blasting Republican Senator Lindsey Graham after stunning claims from Georgia's Republican Secretary of State that Graham hinted that he thought that the Secretary of State should find a way to discard legally cast absentee ballots.
He asked if the ballots could be matched back to the voters, and then I got the sense it implied that then you could throw those out. And he really would look at the counties with the highest frequent error of signatures. Well, it's just an implication that look hard and see how many ballots you could throw out.
Senator Graham disputes the claim, calling it ridiculous. CNN's Manu Raju is live on Capitol Hill. Manu, you spoke with Senator Graham today. That is a stunning charge of real shadiness. What else is Graham saying?
Yeah, a charge from a fellow Republican official. Graham is defending his efforts. He said that he simply had questions about the way mail-in voting is occurring in key states, raising concerns about the mail-in voting process to ensure that signatures are verified, that appropriate protocols in place to do just that. He revealed today that he didn't just call officials in Georgia, but also two other states in which Joe Biden is projected to win, in Arizona and in Nevada. And in my conversation with him today, he also contended that he was trying to push to see if they can make stricter those voter verification rules in Georgia ahead of the Senate runoffs that will determine the next Senate majority.
What I'm very concerned about is that if you're going to continue to vote by mail, that we need to know what systems work and what don't. It's up to the people of Georgia. But I think I have every right in the world to reach out and say, how does it work? And that's what I did. It's really, I thought, a pretty good conversation. So,
I mean, he thinks it's an implicit threat by what you're saying.
I categorically reject that. That wasn't my intent, and that wasn't the purpose of the conversation, to throw out ballots. We're talking about an election we ain't even had yet, which is the Senate races. That was my focus.
And part of the reason why Lindsey Graham has gotten so much backlash is because he's a close Trump ally. He's a chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee that has no oversight over these election matters. He's also a senator from South Carolina, not from Georgia, Nevada, or Arizona. Mitch McConnell, the majority leader, I asked him if he's okay with what Lindsey Graham is doing. He said, ask Lindsey Graham about that. And Chuck Schumer, the Democratic leader, called it reckless. Jay.
So he called three states that Joe Biden won. He didn't happen to call the elections officials just north of South Carolina, in North Carolina, where Trump won. Just that didn't occur to him. Just the ones that Biden won. That's interesting. Let's discuss. Manu Raju, thanks so much. So first of all, let me start, Abby. President Trump and many Republicans obviously refusing to publicly acknowledge that President-elect Biden is President-elect Biden. But today on the Senate floor, CNN team saw not only Senator Lindsey Graham give Senator Kamala Harris a fist bump, but other Senate Republicans, including Tim Scott and and others appearing to congratulate incoming Vice President-elect Kamala Harris. Abby, what's your reaction when you see that?
It's so interesting, Jake, that these Republican lawmakers would be willing to congratulate Senator Harris and I think in one case discuss with her what would happen to her Senate seat back in California, but not acknowledge that this election is over and that Joe Biden is the president-elect. It just really highlights that all of this is, to some extent, perhaps they view it as some political theater, although I think we all know that there are real-life consequences to misleading millions of Americans about whether there is a real chance that these election results can be overturned.
Right, not to mention not allowing the transition when it has to do with COVID or the troops in Afghanistan. Jackie, Lindsey Graham, he's the chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee. What do you think the response would be if the Democratic chairman of the House Judiciary Committee started calling elections officials in states that Trump won narrowly, like North Carolina, and asked about absentee ballots? What do you think the response would be from the MAGA media?
Oh my gosh, I feel like Fox News would be ablaze and you could see it from space, but that is not what's happening here. You even had the Secretary of State in Georgia, one of his top aides who was at the call, back him up and say that Lindsey Graham's impression of the call is incorrect, and the Georgia Secretary of State is telling the truth. It's extremely ham-handed, and frankly, I don't know a lot of Republicans that would appreciate anyone getting involved in the federal level into their state. States are held at states' rights is kind of a Republican thing. So the fact that Lindsey Graham had just kind of wanted to see how things worked in Georgia, it's none of his business, and you can only extrapolate why exactly he was doing that. But I have a hard time believing it's just because he wanted to see how things work.
Yeah, Abby, Senator Graham told Manu that he just had some innocent questions about verifying signatures on ballots, what's going to work. But CNN has learned that Georgia expects to finish its recount by tomorrow and affirm Biden's win. What's your take on what Lindsey Graham was actually trying to do?
Well, it's pretty clear that the president and his allies are searching for any evidence that they can find of fraud. They have found none so far, but they're searching desperately for it. And one of the main avenues is looking at the signature verification, specifically the way you sign your ballot and it's matched up against another signature that is on record. And it sounds like what the Secretary of State Raffensperger was saying was that he was inquiring about the rate at which those are thrown out and whether that could be an indication that they could imply that there was widespread fraud. This is a fool's errand, I think, largely because states that have signature verification are among the most stringent for mail-in voting, and it's just evidence that they're looking for something where there's really nothing. I think this idea that you could throw out votes in bulk is so frankly anti-democratic in nature. If anything, if you're going to throw out votes, they would be thrown out on individual merits, not on a whole. And I think this whole idea is just one that is pretty disturbing when you really think about what the implication is of all of this.
In fact, the Secretary of State of Georgia said, Jackie, that there are 24,000 more Republicans that voted in the primary than voted in the general after Trump began his crusade slamming vote by mail. And there's your margin of victory right there for Joe Biden. 24,000 Republicans who voted in the primary, but not the general election when Joe Biden won by almost 14,000 votes. That's it. If Trump's looking for a reason as to why he lost, it's because he demonized vote by mail.
Well, right, which is why you had in other states like North Carolina, I'm not sure if the Georgia GOP did this, they were trying to unring that bell. And there are Georgia Republicans now that are worried about the runoffs that are coming up in January, that the president and his allies keep continuing to slam Georgia, continuing to slam how Georgia is doing this recount is going to diminish the trust in the Georgia election even going forward. So perhaps Lindsey Graham should look at that if he's actually, as he told Manu, looking toward the next election, because that's something that we're hearing from our sources that Georgia Republicans are actually concerned about.
And Abby, Democratic Congressman Hakeem Jeffries is now calling for a Justice Department investigation into Lindsey Graham. Do you think it might actually go that far?
Well, probably not in the next 60 days under the Trump administration. And it's really still an open question even after that, if Justice Department would be engaged in any kind of investigations like that in a Biden administration, because if the reporting is correct, that Biden is sort of trying to tamp down on some of this talk. I do think that this is one of those things that you might want to let go. And it's also not clear how explicit what Lindsey Graham said was. I mean, clearly the implication was there. Raffensperger, who's a Republican, took it one way, but Graham is really playing, I think, a kind of dangerous game here. If he's implying to election officials that they ought to do something that they think is unethical or potentially illegal, it's just not a game you want to play if you're a sitting United States senator.
It is Wednesday, the 18th of November of 2020, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam. Gunner the English Bulldog is our snoozing sous chef. And our daily special is Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. Yes, it's going to be that kind of a day. Indeed. Speaking of which, what the hell is wrong with Rudy Giuliani that we don't already know what's wrong? Other than the copious amounts of alcohol that he seems to subsist on each day just to reach his balance. I hear that court reporters and adversaries have actually come out and said it's a sad spectacle to see Rudy in the courtroom behaving the way he is. Now, I never paid attention to Rudy Giuliani when he was a younger man and ostensibly taking the mob to court, because I think really what he did is that he opened it up to the Russians. Just to be clear, the Russian mob took over when Rudy decimated the Italian mob. Not that, one is better than the other. It's all the same, right? Right? But anyway, I don't know, or, I have no personal observation of Rudy's courtroom strategies and abilities back in the day. Apparently, he might have been a great litigator. Apparently. I think he was a political animal all along. And it was the assistant AGs and assistant DAs that did the work and possibly the actual litigating. Now, of course, Rudy might come in for the photo op questioning at times. That's how it's done, right? Right. So, is it any different now than it was back in the day? I don't know. As I intimated, court critics and even adversaries say it's a sad spectacle to watch, but I don't know if they're saying in comparison. It could be just like, wow, whoever thought that guy should be in a courtroom? So with no comparison to how it was back in the day. And that might be the best kind of criticism because it isn't colored by any pre-existing notion of what is normal with Rudy Giuliani. Because what is normal? Because when he was litigating cases, I think he was married to his cousin then. I know that in some parts of America that's normal, but I don't know. It seems rather abnormal to me. And I'm not the only one who thinks that, so there. And it just got more weird from that. Ask his kids. They'll tell you. And so with that, the Wayne County Canvassing Board in Michigan decided that, hey, we're gonna split down here 2-2 with two of the canvassers against two of the other canvassers, Republicans and Democrats, equally serve on this board, and then they certify the election in that county. And as it's been noted, the two Republicans decided, we're not going to do that. We'll certify all the white parts of the county, the cities and the suburbs, but just not Detroit. Okay. Just not Detroit, because it's predominantly black, not taking into consideration there's also Greeks and a few other ethnic types, but hey, cannon fodder, man, cannon fodder. Not even martyrs, just cannon fodder. So that provoked such an outrage that, I should mention also that the canvassing board was rather transparent because they were live streaming the Zoom call for all to see. And that's when voters, precinct workers, election ballot counters, the people that work, do the nuts and bolts, started calling up saying, "You're calling us crooks? You're saying that there might be some sort of fraud?" And as Greg said at the top, we're your neighbors. Or not at the top, but during David's show. At the top of David's show. We're your neighbors. Now, when Trump finally got the word, because he was still tweeting out, "Oh, look, Wayne County's on my side," even after the two idiot. And one of them's apparently quite a racist. QAnon racist. Even though they reversed course and decided to go ahead and certify the county. Nobody told Trump. So, I mean, there was like, an hour more. Maybe he got up this morning and finally figured it out. Because his tweets this morning were quite untoward, I might add. So, when Trump got the news, he didn't get the news that, these two canvassing board members, Republicans, reverse course because of the outrage from their neighbors. In Trump's world, it is that the two canvassers were harassed in some sort of nefarious private way, like maybe some thugs came over and physically harassed them while on the Zoom call. I don't know how this works in the Trump brain, but it somehow does for him. And the people, 73 million of them apparently, who think that, the guy's just right and everything else is wrong. I keep hearing now the 73 million instead of the 80 million. They don't think that way. Apparently the 73 is such a grand number, and it's not half. I saw the tweet of God. He said, "I hate half of you." You know what? Science says it's the toxic third you should be hating. Come on. And anyway, it's true. They're not half of our electorate. They're a third of our electorate. Let's be clear. So we get to hear about them at the expense of, of course, their fifis are so hurt. I could care less about how they feel, especially about how they've acted and let these crimes go on and on and on and on. I don't care about their feelings. If they have the capability of experiencing some sort of dissonance, they ought to. They ought to confront themselves. And we're supposed to coddle them in the midst of it? No, it's tough love now. So I don't really care, And the resistance from them to reality continues. Here today, we start in the county I'm in, it's going to be a bit longer, but a statewide 2-week freeze where we're not supposed to be in family groups of more than 6 for parties or whatnot. Meaning, Thanksgiving. Well, you know what? I'm upset too about Thanksgiving. I'm going to make the best of it as I can, as we all should. But 2 weeks of, pretty much trying to get locked down because we are just spiking with infections. And of course, we've got the usual call that we have of recalling Kate Brown, our governor, because she's a jackboot tyrant. Kate Brown says to shut it down. Oh, well, you know what? I think the pandemic pretty much was the dictator in this situation. And the reason COVID is a dictator right now is because we have idiots who allow it to be so. Oh, that's not a dictator. Why don't we just let everybody get sick? You are an idiot. So, we're still getting the same BS like, I crunched the numbers just don't make sense. Okay. Once again, just because you're not getting it doesn't mean the rest of the county isn't seeing a spike. I don't want to make these people become exposed to the actual devastation that this disease is wrecking. Wrecking? Rot? But I almost think that we should force these types to be frontline workers in the midst of this and then tell us how they feel. Because it's not any fun anywhere. Denying it is not going to make it go away, and that's why we have laws. Now, I haven't been able to catch up to find out what Oath Keeper sheriffs in the region down here in Southern Oregon are saying. The last time we had these suggestions that we should have some kind of enforceable organization enforce these rules, the sheriffs down here said, no way, I'm not going to do that. Really? You took an oath to the Constitution, not to your pocket Constitution over your chest, where it starts with the Second Amendment and ends with the Second Amendment. Okay? So, yeah. The reason that we have these laws is because people are idiots, and then we have to force them to, be good neighbors. That's why we have zoning laws. That's even why we have property lines. Okay? Because there's always an idiot who's going to say, I don't respect that. And that's why we have the laws. Well, everybody here listening to me knows that already, but I'm just ranting and I apologize. So maybe I should just dive in with the curated part of the show while Gunner is snoozing away. He does that. We love him for it, though. Well, Lindsey Graham just doesn't know when to shut up about his election tampering and fraud attempts, and that just might be good for democracy. It just might. On the other hand, I've been hearing some entreaties that maybe the Biden administration won't hold criminals to account. On the other hand, I think that Joe has to say that because he is a politician of some note. And maybe we should get back to the old traditional role of the vice president and make her the attack dog. And maybe she'll find some enterprising Elliot Ness to go do the job. And just don't tell anyone until you bring in the indictments and the charges. That's what I kind of think is going to happen. On the rest of the menu here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Smothered Benedict Wednesdays, a financially troubled startup helped power the Trump campaign, and it seems to be still powered. We'll get into that. Media sources report that the FBI is investigating Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton. Yeah, that continuing scandal with a big money donor that he, kind of pushed a few laws around for. And an historic deal revives the plan for the largest U.S. dam demolition in history. And it just might save some salmon, too. After the break, we move to the chef's table where the National Australia Bank is temporarily closing all its branches due to a, quote, physical security threat. More news to come on that. And world sports organizations questioned why American professional and college athletes are exempt from the U.S. Senate passed Rodchenkov Anti-Doping Act. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com. To the rightish of the page is our chat room link, and the chat room is monitored by Kelly Lincoln. Thank you, Kelly. To the leftish of that chat room link, and also the social media scroll, you'll see it right there. To the leftish of that, on the other side of the page, near the bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com, you will then hopefully notice the link to our Patreon site. And if you could, please become a recurring Patreon of Netroots Radio and possibly send us the funds that you might spend on an espresso-type coffee drink. Send that to us once a month. That allows us to pay our bills and continue resisting, because it looks like we're going to have to. The forces that have been arrayed are not going away. We'll be able to take away some of their titular heads. But other than that, we still have a fight. All right. Rust never sleeps. And this is a very corrosive element in the body politic, if not in the whole of democracy. And we need to keep at work. It's like the ship of state. You don't just let it float in the ocean. You got to rub out everything. You got to get the barnacles off. You got to rub out the rust. You go in a circuit all around the ship of state, and right when you think you're done, you got to start over again. Get to work and rub out all that corrosiveness. We have to. And so we are doing our part, and you are allowing us to do so, and we thank you for your generosity. If you would like to follow Netroots Radio on Twitter, you could do so at Netroots Radio. Thank you, Tom, for taking care of that. And I, of course, take care of me because I'm at Justice Putnam on Twitter. And I post the show notes and links diary on Daily Kos about 10 minutes before showtime, and then post that up on Twitter and other social media platforms. So follow me on Twitter. You can also follow the show on Twitter at Cookbook West, and pick up podcasts by way of Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, iHeart, YouTube, iTunes, and wherever, really, podcasts can be found, wherever. Okay, this first offering here in the Bistro Cafe is out of the Associated Press by Garance Burke, and this is quite a story. This is a little bit about Cambridge Analytica and some other digital data companies that, I don't know, delved into the data almost like Big Brother. Yeah, we'll see how this is working. Well, Trump's 2020 re-election campaign was powered by a cell phone app that allowed staff to monitor the movements of his millions of supporters and offered intimate access to their social networks. Intimate access. While the campaign may be winding down, the data strategy is very much alive, and the digital details the app collected can be put to multiple other uses, for instance, to fundraise for Trump's future political venture. Maybe stroke Trump's base. Oh, I wonder what that entails. Or even build an audience for a new media empire. The app lets Trump's team communicate directly with the 2.8 million people who downloaded it, more than any other app in U.S. presidential campaigns. And if they gave permission, with their entire contact list as well. Oh, my. Once installed, it can track their behavior on the app and in the physical world, push out headlines, sync with mass texting operations, sell MAGA merchandise, fundraise and log attendance at Trump's rallies. And according to the Trump's privacy policy and user interface, they have to give it all up. Yet the enterprise software company that built a tool to propel Trump's mass movement is in financial distress and has been sustained at key points by the administration, meaning us, the United States taxpayer, and Trump's campaign, according to interviews with former employees, financial filings, and court documents. Austin-based Funware Inc., whose stock is trading for pennies, recently agreed to pay Uber $4.5 million as part of a settlement over claims of fraudulent advertising, and earlier this year risked being delisted from NASDAQ. In April, The company got a $2.9 million loan under the Coronavirus Aid Relief and Economic Security Act as it was building the Trump campaign app. Oh my! That sounds like a campaign violation, doesn't it? Too bad we're barred from investigating it. Too bad. Campaign watchdogs and former employees alike marvel at how a struggling startup known more for building apps for hospitals and a Manhattan-based astrologer became a juggernaut in Trump's re-election bid, facilitating an ongoing data and fundraising effort that threw the company a financial lifeline. Yeah, I guess that happens when you don't have a soul. Even after major media outlets called the election for his Democratic opponent Joe Biden, the app kept pushing out content supporting Trump's bid. On Tuesday, the app pushed out fresh content defending the Trump's vote-counting litigations in Georgia. And last week, the app posted a fundraising appeal asking for donations to Trump's newly formed election defense fund, which will send most of the money raised to a new political action committee Trump formed called Save America. That PAC has few spending restrictions and is used instead to pay for lavish personal expenses and give money to other candidates. Oh, really? While activity on the app has slowed down recently, the enriched data it gathered on the president's supporters, I mean Trump, we're not supposed to say the P word. That's part of the Netroots Radio Style Manual, of course, which can include everything from their contacts to their IP address to their location data, can serve many purposes going forward, said Adav Noti, a former Federal Election Commission attorney who works for the nonpartisan Campaign Legal Center. Congress and the FEC have not set rules governing how campaigns can use people's personal data and or limits on the number of entities to whom the campaign can sell its list. Funware declined to respond to questions about the app, the company's financial status, its internal culture, or its relationship to the campaign. A senior Trump campaign official declined to answer questions about possible future uses for the rich supporter data the campaign collected via digital platforms, including the Funware app. Oh, there's more? The data is owned by the campaign and limited whatever hit their servers, said the official, who spoke on condition they didn't want anybody to know who he was because he's still looking for a job somewhere else now, too. As Funware has hit challenging financial times in recent years, it has shed employees, clients, and investors, 10 of whom agreed to speak with the AP, some on condition of anonymity because they signed non-disclosure agreements or feared retaliation. Oh, really? What kind of retaliation might that be? Well, Funware sued its client, Uber, in 2017, accusing the ride-sharing company of failing to pay its invoices, according to court records. But after Uber filed suit against Funware, alleging the software company committed fraud by, among other things, allowing its ads for the ride-sharing app to show up on porn sites, former employees said the startup looked for new ways to diversify its revenue. Oh, really? How would they do that? Well, into the picture stepped Karl Rove. Yes, that Karl Rove. Long before reaching the White House, Rove made his name in Texas politics as a specialist in direct mail. You remember that? A form of political advertising he once said was effective because it was largely immune from press coverage or near invisible to the public. Ex-Funware employees said the lobbyist staff gave Rove a presentation showing off how the company could use cell phone data to send out customized political ads that were also hard to trace. Well, his mind was blown. He was like, "This is extremely powerful data," a former employee recalled. Rove said he brokered a relationship for Funware with Trump's 2016 campaign digital director, Brad Parscale. Oh, really? I thought it had lots of implications for politics, so in a subsequent conversation, I mentioned it to Brad Parscale, Rove said. He said, interesting, and that was it. He never told me he had hired them. Jake Blyberg of the Associated Press brings us this next offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, a report that we've been following for a bit of time here at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. The FBI is investigating allegations that Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton broke the law in using his office to benefit a wealthy donor, according to two people with knowledge of the probe. Federal agents are looking into claims by former members of Paxton's staff that the high-profile Republican committed bribery, abuse of office, and other crimes to help Austin real estate developer Nate Paul. Confirmation of the criminal probe marks mounting legal peril for Paxton, who's denied wrongdoing and refused calls for his resignation since his top deputies reported him to federal authorities at the end of September, as we reported then. A criminal defense attorney for Paxton, Philip Hilder, declined to comment because that's what they're supposed to do. Spokespersons in the Attorney General's office did not immediately respond to requests for comment because that's what they're supposed to do also. It's unclear how far the FBI is into investigating the allegations against Paxton, and an agency spokesman in San Antonio declined to comment because it is, of course, an active investigation. Each of Paxton's accusers has resigned, been put on leave, or been fired since reporting him. Last week, 4 of them filed a state whistleblower lawsuit against the Attorney General, claiming he ousted them as retribution. Well, it certainly looks like that. Of the Associated Press brings us this final offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and it looks like some good news for once. An agreement announced yesterday, Tuesday, paves the way for the largest dam demolition in U.S. history, a project that promises to reopen hundreds of miles of waterways along the Oregon-California border to salmon that are critical to tribes but have dwindled to almost nothing in recent years. If approved, the deal would revive plans to remove 4 massive hydroelectric dams on the lower Klamath River, creating the foundation for the most ambitious salmon restoration effort in history. The project on California's second-largest river would be at the vanguard of a trend toward dam demolitions in the U.S. as the structures age and become less economically viable amid growing environmental concerns about the health of native fish. Previous efforts to address problems in the Klamath Basin have fallen apart amid years of legal sparring that generated distrust among tribes, fishing groups, farmers, and environmentalists. And the new agreement could face more legal challenges. Some state and federal lawmakers criticized it as financially irresponsible overreach by leaders in Oregon and California. The new plan makes Oregon and California equal partners in the demolition, with the nonprofit entity called the Klamath River Renewal Corporation, and adds $45 million to the project's $450 million budget to ease concerns. Oregon, California, and the utility Pacific Corp, which operates the hydroelectric dams and is owned by billionaire Warren Buffett's company Berkshire Hathaway, will each provide 1/3 of the additional funds. The Federal Energy Regulatory Commission must approve the deal. If accepted, it would allow Pacific Corp and Berkshire Hathaway to walk away from aging dams that are more of an albatross than a profit generator, while addressing regulators' concerns. Now, Oregon, California, and the nonprofit would jointly take over the hydroelectric license from Pacific Corp, while the nonprofit will oversee the work. Well, let's get to work. And while we do that, why don't we get to our break? And when we get back from that break, we will go through weather from around the world, and we will finish up with the stories that we have curated for you today. You're listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
This is Take Two Movie Review. I'm Kim Lowe. This week, horror's real and surreal. His House is an unusual movie that transcends horror stereotypes. It works as straight-up horror involving a refugee couple whose new home in English council housing is being terrorized by a spirit known as the Night Witch, and it is effective. But woven throughout is a touching, if brutal, tale of refugees starting over again in a strange new place after having lost almost everything. Either way, it works surprisingly well, resulting in one of the best movies of 2020 so far. His House starts by introducing us to two South Sudanese refugees, Bo and Rial, who have just been granted status as asylum seekers. Along with a modest weekly stipend for food and other essentials, they are also given an apartment in what we would call public housing. Their caseworker, played by Doctor Who alumnus Matt Smith, assures the couple that they are lucky to have the place all to themselves. While they are the only corporeal residents, the couple quickly discovers that in addition to being run down, the place appears to be haunted by an Apeth or Night Witch, a spirit from their native South Sudan. It's no use trying to move away, as Rael explains, as the spirit would simply follow them until their debt was repaid. Without spoilers, the debt is tied to the circumstances of their escape and ties in with the movie's theme of dealing with trauma and trying to move forward with wrenching PTSD and survivor's guilt. His House is a unique film that portrays the everyday horrors faced by refugees in terms of discrimination and hostility in their new country, and drives it home with a creepy parallel story stemming from their particular situation. And it makes for an intelligent film that goes way beyond typical horror fare. This has been Take Two Movie Review. I'm Kim Lowe. Catch up with us at TakeTwoMovieReview.com and feed us back on our channel on YouTube.
This program is presented by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
Colorectal cancer is the number 2 cancer killer of men and women in the United States, but it is preventable. Early on, colorectal cancer typically has no symptoms. It starts with a precancerous polyp or abnormal growth in the colon, which can be removed without surgery. Several tests are available to find these polyps, so they can be removed before they turn into cancer. Screening also finds colorectal cancer early when treatment works best. Recommended screening for adults at average risk begins at age 50 and continues until age 75. Learn about screening test options and find out which tests are covered by insurance. Talk to your healthcare provider about when you should be screened and discuss the best tests for you. For more information about colorectal cancer prevention, please visit cdc.gov/vital signs.
For the most accurate health information, visit cdc.gov or call 1-800-CDC-INFO.
I'm Scott Hirschberger, with Scientific American as an American Association for the Advancement of Science Mass Media Science and Engineering Fellow. And here's a short piece from the November 2020 issue of the magazine, in the section called Advances, Dispatches from the Frontiers of Science, Technology, and Medicine. The article is titled Quick Hits, and it's a rundown of some stories from around the globe. From Panama, vampire bats monitored at the Smithsonian Tropical Research Institute have fewer interactions with family and friends when ill, biologists say, but they do not seem to stay apart intentionally. Instead, sick bats are simply too lethargic to call out to or groom one another. From Canada, the last fully intact ice shelf in Canada collapsed into the Arctic Ocean this summer. Located in the territory of Nunavut, the Milne ice shelf lost 80 square kilometers of ice, 40% of its area, in just 2 days. From Chile, living 6,700 meters above sea level, a yellow-rumped leaf-eared mouse found at the summit of the dormant volcano Yuyayaco is the highest-dwelling mammal ever documented. It remains unclear how the animal survives the oxygen scarcity and freezing temperatures at this elevation. From Russia, an analysis of ancient woolly rhino DNA from Siberia revealed that the population size was stable for thousands of years before the mammal's extinction 14,000 years ago, suggesting that a warming climate, not hunting by humans, most likely triggered its demise. From Ethiopia, paleoanthropologists unearthed a 1.4 million-year-old hand axe made from a hippo's leg bone. Together with recently discovered stone tools, the axe indicates that Homo erectus had a diverse toolkit several 100,000 years earlier than scientists had suspected. And from Antarctica, contrary to researchers' expectations, methane-eating microbes failed to rapidly contain the first methane leak detected on the Antarctic seafloor. The finding means more of the potent greenhouse gas may have been pouring into the atmosphere than previously thought. That was Quick Hits. I'm Scott Hirschberger.
Hi, I'm Tom Hartman, and since you're listening to netrootsradio.com, show your progressive side and go to the donate button on the bottom of the homepage. It's progressives like you who power Netroots Radio and keep the progressive message beaming everywhere 24 hours a day. Just go to our donate button at the bottom of netrootsradio.com. Thank you for keeping progressive radio at full power.
Could the Supreme Court kill Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, all 955 pages of it, for lack of a few words? I'm Bill Newman, and this is the Civil Liberties Minute. In November, the Trump administration argued to the Supreme Court that it should kill the entire ACA because one provision is unconstitutional. Previously, the High Court had ruled that the ACA's individual mandate, which requires people to have insurance or pay a tax, was constitutional because that provision fell within Congress's power to tax. But after that, Congress eliminated the tax, which meant that the basis for the Supreme Court's decision no longer existed, and so the Supreme Court now is expected to strike down the individual mandate, which raises the issue, what happens to the rest of the law? Or in legal parlance, is it severable? Some laws have what's called the severability clause, a few words, a simple sentence that says, if one part of the law is declared illegal or unconstitutional, the rest of the law survives. That is, it's severable. Some laws have a non-severability clause. Many laws don't say one way or the other, and the ACA is one of those, which leaves it up to the court to decide, which means when the court is declaring a piece of a law unconstitutional, should it use a scalpel or a bulldozer on the rest of it? The fate of Obamacare and the health insurance that it provides for 20 million people may depend on the answer to that question, which we'll learn in 2021. The Civil Liberties Minute is made possible by the ACLU because freedom can't protect itself.
Big high walls can be troublesome. Ask Humpty Dumpty. However, for a real-life epic story about wall troubles, ponder the trials and tribulations of our very own president. He can't seem to get his one big beautiful wall funded or even taken seriously, much less built. Trump has continuously demanded that Congress shell out more than $10 billion of our taxpayer dollars to erect a monster of a wall across some 2,000 miles of the U.S. border with Mexico, ranting that his magnificent edifice would keep aliens from entering the U.S. from the south. But even when his own party controlled both houses of Congress, his grand scheme went unloved, unfunded, and unbuilt. Still, he persists. In January, he directed officials to put up a demonstration section of his 30-foot-tall wall to show the world how effective the Trump bulwark would be. But the thing blew over, not from a hurricane-force storm, but from moderate winds topping out at only 37 miles an hour. Embarrassing. More embarrassing was a personal visit Trump made to San Diego last September for a media event hailing a new SuperTech model of wall that he declared would be, quote, virtually impossible for violators to climb, signing his name on the structure. I tell you this strongly, Humpty-Trumpety said, no more people can come in. But a climbing group in Kentucky built a replica of that wall and held an up-and-over competition. Winning time was 13.1 seconds. Dozens of competitors easily topped it, including an 8-year-old girl and a guy who climbed it one-handed while juggling various items with his other hand. This is Jim Hightower saying, one thing that truly is impenetrable is Trump's locked mind, refusing to let him see how silly this extravagant folly is.
Need an antidote to the progressive blues? Want some good news about how grassroots folks are rebelling against the corporate powers and winning? Well, here's an easy-to-swallow pill for you, the Hightower Lowdown. Hightower's monthly newsletter will give you the lowdown, even as it lifts you up. It's 4 pages a month, jam-packed with facts you can use, actions you can take, and Jim's own Texas humor, all for only $15 a year. To become a lowdowner, go to hightowerlowdown.org.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1929. That was the day that Viljo Raasval and Jani Voutilainen disappeared on their way to recruit workers at a bush camp during a strike in northwestern Ontario, Canada, near Thunder Bay. They were both Finnish Canadians. Viljo Raasval was an organizer for the Lumber Workers Industrial Union of Canada. The union included many Finnish lumber workers and had ties to the Canadian Communist Party. Jani Voutilainen was an experienced trapper. The two men never made it to their destination, the Pigeon Timber Company camp located north of Onion Lake. It was unknown what had happened to them until the next April. Voutilainen's body was found in shallow water at the edge of Onion Lake. A few days later, Raasval was found also drowned in a nearby creek that emptied into the lake. The Finnish workers blamed the deaths of the two men on the conservative Finnish camp boss, who oversaw the Onion Lake encampment. The coroner's autopsy ruled the deaths accidental drownings, but many remained unconvinced and suspected foul play. They questioned how an experienced trapper such as Voutilainen could fall through the ice and drown in such shallow water. Thousands attended the funeral for the martyrs. The debate over what happened to the two men continues to this day. An historical marker reads, quote, "The mystery surrounding the deaths of Raasval and Voutilainen endures, sustaining them in public memory as martyrs to the cause of organized labor." A headstone donated by the Thunder Bay and District Labor Council was erected in 1993 to honor the graves which had gone previously unmarked. The deaths of the two men traveling to organize workers remains a mystery of the Canadian labor movement to this day.
Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. We always begin weather from around the world along the banks of the Rogue River and the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon, on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently 47 degrees Fahrenheit, expecting a high of only around 51 to 53. Light rain early, they say, then remaining cloudy with showers in the afternoon. Winds out of the southwest at 10 to 15 miles per hour, bringing, and the rain will bring just about 1/10 of an inch, they say. And then tonight we'll have light rain early, then remaining cloudy with showers overnight, looking more like about 1/4 of an inch. And winds will be light and variable. Sunshine, along with some cloudy intervals tomorrow. Small chance of rain with high in the low 50s, winds light and variable. Confirmed cases of coronavirus in Jackson County in the southern part of Oregon have now spiked to 2,959. That's 2,959. With 10 confirmed deceased, a gross undercount as it always has been. Pollen is rated as none right outside the window here at the mothership in Rogue River proper. The air quality index in the region is good at 32 parts per million, and the daytime UV index is low at 1. Barometric pressure is falling at 29.76 inches. Visibility is down to 3 miles, and relative humidity is at 98%. Well, it's because it's raining. Weather from around the world is brought to you by People's Personal Weather Stations that they purchased. These people planted these purchased personal weather stations somewhere on their property, and these people positively live around the world. They do. London is 57 and cloudy. Paris is 60 and sunny. Rome is 66 and sunny. Kyiv is 30 degrees and cloudy. Kabul is 37 and partly cloudy. I guess they got rid of their smoke. Hong Kong is 71 and partly cloudy. Sydney, Australia is 59 and partly cloudy. Oh, I'm sorry, I missed. Tokyo is 59 and partly cloudy. Sydney, Australia is actually 64 and fair. San Francisco, California is 56 and mostly cloudy. And New York is 34 degrees Fahrenheit and partly cloudy. Brr. And that is weather from around the world. Brought to you by People's Personal Weather Stations that they purchased. These people planted these purchased personal weather stations somewhere on their property, and these people positively live around the world. Anonymous worker bees at Reuters bring us this first amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Now, National Australia Bank said today it was temporarily closing all its branches and attached offices due to a physical security threat, but did not give further details. Australia's second biggest lender said it was working with police and will issue an update later. As always, the safety and security of our customers and colleagues is our priority, National Australia Bank said in a statement. The bank has over 600 branches across Australia. It added that internet and mobile banking would continue to work as usual.
Je te donne ce mon amour pour la vie entière. La promesse de me trouver à tes genoux. Aussitôt que tu m'appelles, rester toujours fidèle. C'est tout, c'est tout. Je te donne tous mes printemps, mes étés de mer. Mes automnes, quand les feuilles tombent partout. Si ce n'est pas une bonne affaire, je te donne tous mes hivers.
Steve Keating of Reuters brings us this final amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. The IOC acknowledged the passing of the Rodchenkov Anti-Doping Act, otherwise known as RADA, in the U.S. Senate, but questioned why American professional and college athletes are exempt from the legislation. The act, named after whistleblower Grigory Rodchenkov, who helped expose Russia's state-sponsored doping, will give U.S. justice officials the ability to pursue criminal penalties against anyone involved in doping at international events involving American athletes, sponsors, or broadcasters. The legislation passed unopposed in the U.S. Senate on Monday, now only needs the signature of Trump to become law. Professional leagues and college sports in the U.S. were included in the original draft of the bill, according to the World Anti-Doping Agency, but were later removed. They also did not adhere to the World Anti-Doping Code. Well, that's just like us now, isn't it? Well, it also brings us to the end of our broadcast period for the day, but you do know Netroots Radio will broadcast on, and we'll meet up tomorrow for Metro Shrimp and Grits Thursdays. So do stay tuned to Netroots Radio all day and all night for all the breaking news as it breaks, and we'll meet up here tomorrow, right here, in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. À fleurs sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre, comme aux langues de golfe clair. T'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. Pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver.